Kofi was born into chains, but his mind had always been free. Sold as a child to the house of Adebayo, one of the wealthiest merchant families in Oyo, he learned early that a man's worth was measured in gold, not in the color of his skin or the shackles on his wrist. While other slaves toiled under the merciless sun, sweating over yam fields and carrying heavy baskets of trade goods, Kofi moved in the shadow of wealth. His master, Adebayo, was a man of vision, one who understood that knowledge was as valuable as ivory. And so, instead of breaking his back in the field, Kofi was made to serve in the great house, trending to the affairs of merchants, listening to the voices of nobles, absorbing the secrets of the rich. It did not take long for him to realize that the rich bled like the poor, that their laughter often masked fear, and that true power was not held by the strongest warriors, but by those who knew how to control whispers. By the time he reached manhood, Kofi had mastered the art of silence, the wisdom of watching. Though a slave, he dressed in fine robes, his hand untouched by the calluses of labor. He sat in the commerce of opulent rooms, his presence acknowledged but never questioned. He learned the weight of a lie, the cost of loyalty, and the most dangerous truth of all, he was smarter than the man who owned him. Among all in the house of Adebayo, none was closer to Kofi than Olumide, the merchant's only son. Though Olumide had been raised in privilege, he had a restless soul, one that longed for adventure beyond the marketplace. He saw in Kofi not a servant but a brother. "We are the same, you and I," Olumide often said. "We dream bigger than this place." But they were not the same. Olumide's dreams were indulgence, fantasies that would never come at a cost. Kofi's dreams were dangerous. They whispered of freedom, of rising beyond the chains that bound him. Still, their bond was strong. When Olumide rode through the city, Kofi rode beside him. When Olumide feasted with nobles, Kofi sat in the shadows, listening, and when Olumide laughed with the sons of chiefs, Kofi laughed too. Though his laughter was carefully measured, it was this bond that led to Kofi's greatest mistake. One evening, a grand feast was held at the palace of the Afalin, the ruler of Oyo. All the wealthiest families were invited. It was a night of excess. Roasted antelope dripping with palm oil, dancers swaying in the firelight, gold dust glistening on the cheeks of noble women. Adebayo and Olumide attended, and against all reason, Olumide insisted that Kofi accompany them. "Dress him well," he commanded his servants. "Tonight he is not a slave." And so, for the first time, Kofi was draped in the silk of a nobleman. Gold bracelets adorned his waist, and his feet, which had known only dust, were now wrapped in fine leather sandals. He walked into the palace not as a servant but as an equal. And so one questioned him. The rich and powerful mistook his silence for wisdom, his confidence for nobility. The women watched him with curiosity, their eyes lingering. The traders sought his opinion on the value of goods. Even the king's ministers listened when he spoke. Kofi had played the part of a shadow all his life, but that night, for the first time, he stood in the light, yet the light reveals as much as it blinds. Among the guests was Chief Oyeka, a rival of Adebayo, a man whose cannon was sharper than his blade. He watched Kofi carefully, his mind turning like a storm. The next morning, as the sun rose over Oyo, soldiers stormed Adebayo's home. They dragged Kofi into the country yard, his fine robes now stained with dust. The nobles who had once smiled at him looked away. The women who had admired him did not speak. Even Olumide, his dearest friend, stood frozen, powerless to stop what was happening. In the presence of the king's council, Chief Oyeka stepped forward. "This man is a fraud," he declared. "A slave who was walked among us, whispered among us, deceived us." The crowd murmured. Some were shocked, others secretly envious of Kofi's intelligence, and poise nodded in agreement. The king, adorned in his golden robes, stared down at Kofi. "Is it true?" he asked. Kofi raised his head, his voice steady. "I have never hidden what I am," he said. "I am a slave, but I am also a man. And if I have walked among you, dined with you, advised you, it is not because of a lie, but because you have chosen to listen." Caps rippled through the audience. Some saw wisdom in his words, others saw defiance. Adebayo, the man who had owned Kofi his own life, stepped forward. "My king," he said, "this man is no ordinary slave. He is more valuable than merchants. He has the mind of a leader." Chief Oyeka scolded. "Then let him buy his freedom, if he can." The king raised his hand, silencing the room. He studied Kofi for a long moment, then he spoke. "You have walked among nobles, yet you are still a slave. You have the mind of a king, but you do not wear a crown. You may choose, return to your chains, or leave this city forever and seek your own throne." The weight of this decision pressed on Kofi's chest. He turned to Olumide, to the life he had known. Then he looked beyond the palace walls, towards the unknown. At last he smiled. Without a word, he removed the silk robe that had made him an equal among nobles. He stripped himself of gold, of presents, bare-chested, unshackled. He walked past the stone-crowned and into the rising sun. And as he disappeared beyond the city gate, a whisper followed him, spreading like wildfire. The slave who dined with kings would return, not a servant, but as a ruler. This is the end of our story. Please, whatever you've learned from this story, don't hesitate to give us in the comment section. Remember, the name is Florence. And if you don't hear from me, see you next time. Bye bye.